Hey, everybody. Welcome to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. So glad that you tuned in. Hope you had a magnificent week and a wonderful weekend, and really glad to have you with us tuning into the program today. On the Zoom call with me on today's broadcast is Melanie Hopkins. She's an entrepreneur. I'm not sure if I said that word right. That's a mouthful in itself. And she specializes in doing some pretty cool things in our neighborhood. So welcome to the program, Melanie. I'm so glad you're here. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much. Well, there's a whole bunch of people who want to know all about you. So why don't we start a little bit about you telling us who you are, how you came about to do what you do, and then we'll break it open from there.
Well, I'm an artist, an Inuit artist, originally from Inuvik, Northwest Territories. I just kind of always been into art, like finger painting or whatever as a kid. And it's just, I've never stopped, I guess.
Yeah.
There have been periods where I slowed down a bit. I haven't focused on it as much, but lately I've really been trying to focus on it and kind of make a career out of it, I guess.
That's a wonderful thing to do, right? Is when you find something that you really, really like and you can flip it into a career.
Yeah.
So what kind of art, what's the medium that you like to use most often?
It varies. I do pencil sketches, ink drawings, some paintings. I've worked with like India ink and charcoal, stuff like that. I prefer the pencils and pen art.
Do you find it easier to work with the pencils and pen?
Pencil's nice because you can erase when you mess it up.
Yeah, of course.
Gotta like that. But the pen drawings are more like pronounced, they stand out. So.
And so when you were younger and you were fiddling with these fantastic mediums, what was it that inspired you? Was there something from your life history or something from, that you just saw that somebody else was doing that perhaps you really enjoyed? Or what was it that geared you there?
Well, on my mom's side, almost everybody's an artist.
Yeah.
So that definitely had an influence. Like my uncle and my granddad, they both carve, and my granddad paints, or he used to. Mm-hmm. My nanak used to sew like dolls and mitts and slippers and stuff. My mom used to draw and paint and all this stuff. So I've just always been around it, Where I'm from in the Northwest Territories, we have this thing called the Great Northern Arts Festival. Mm-hmm. And so every year I'd go with like a sketch pad and a pen, and I'd like draw the paintings or the sculptures that I saw.
Wow.
I was just let loose and ran around and had a good time.
No kidding. What was it like living there? It must have been really, I want to say cold, but that's just so stereotypical to think of when you think of Northwest Territories. But tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up in Inuit.
It was cold.
Yeah.
Winters are maybe 2/3 of the year. It's a very small town. I think the population's roughly 3,000. So moving to BC feels like, the big city.
Yeah, no kidding. How long have you been here?
Since 2012. So almost half my life, but.
Yeah. But still 2012, that's quite a journey to be coming from, like night and day in the way that you probably were living, for sure.
Yeah, it's, such a small town and very like community based, like everybody knows everyone. And then here it's like, don't know too many people. My mom grew up here, so she knows a lot of people still, but it's kind of different. Yeah.
Oh, of course. I totally understand. I would imagine that moving from that town, especially as a child, coming such a great distance. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because I imagine that part of that sort of plays into the way you do your art as well.
Sorry, my cats.
Oh, no, for those of you who are tuning in, of course, this is being recorded on Zoom and it will show on YouTube. So one of the things about being on Zoom is that I get to see stuff that maybe you guys don't get to see. And one of them is this most adorable cat that just walked across the screen in our conversation.
She's sweet.
Yeah, she's very sweet.
So yeah, I was about 11 when we moved down here. It was definitely a lot at the time, you know, leaving all my friends and my family and a lot of the culture, because it's very community culture based. Like, you know, we'd go out on the land and stuff, to here where it's, you know, a completely different culture that I know nothing about. And it's, you know, it's a lot busier. So many people, stuff going on, you know, shopping malls and fast food, like
none of that up there.
No, I mean, we have KFC and like that's it. You know,
that was probably a big deal when the KFC came to town, for sure.
I mean, I wasn't there, but probably, yeah.
Probably. So for our listeners, maybe it's a good idea to talk a little bit about your heritage. So you're obviously a Canadian girl, but what is your background? Are you First Nations? Are you, I don't know, is it termed Eskimonian? Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to term it. Can you help us with that?
So I'm Inuit on my mom's side. She's half, and I'm a quarter, but I did grow up with the culture and the language. You know, I was in Iqualuit, which is the language immersion in kindergarten. So like right off the bat, you know, learning my language and the food and everything. Yeah, like we'd have camps and stuff where we go out on the land, we can go hunting and fishing and trapping, and like sewing and stuff was part of the curriculum in school.
Yeah.
I got to make a jiggling hook, which is for like ice fishing in school. So it's very culture based. It's nice.
No kidding. So it must have been a bit of a culture shock to come to Vancouver Island where it's less prominent.
It was definitely a change. Like they have some culture things. Sorry, my cats are having a time.
Not to worry.
They have some culture, you know, they teach, like I live in Nanaimo, so they teach Hulkaminum here. But it's not as prevalent as it was where I'm from, which I found kind of interesting. Like I still tried to learn and stuff, but it was just so different. I was like, oh, this isn't what I'm used to. Like it's kind of strict. And like I said, my mom grew up down here, so she knew people at like powwows and potlatches and stuff. So we go to that, and it's very different, but it's good that they're still somewhat around, you know?
So is your mom Sunemo then, or is she Inuit as well and just happened and grew up in Nanaimo?
Yeah, she's Inuit too, and she just grew up back and forth between Inuvik and here.
I see.
And then my dad's Scottish, and or is he Irish? He's one of them.
That's okay. So one of my dearest friends, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, you may be. His name is Dan Elliott. Dan Elliott he's Stenemos and Scottish. And I'm always surprised to hear how many First Nation families are a combination of either, you know, Scottish or Irish along with, right? So that's neat that your dad is either Scottish or Irish, whichever one. Do you feel like you fall into any kind of like as far as the I don't know, how do you put it? And I'm sorry to my listeners for my ignorance, because this is really a very normal thing for a lot of people is how do you ask the right questions when you're not really sure? And when I'm thinking of the First Nation communities and populations, the last thing that I ever want to do is insult or anything like that. But I know that most people that are speaking don't know how to properly ask the question. And it isn't your job, of course, to teach me how either, or communities of First Nations to teach us how. So I just wanted to clarify quickly that if I make mistakes, and that please accept my humble and purest apology for if I have at any time or in any way make that mistake, because it's never my intention. But having said that, I'm curious, like, how do you identify most? Do you identify more First Nations, Inuit? Do you identify more Scottish, Canadian? You're Canadian either way. How do you see yourself in community?
I do see myself more, I focus more on the Inuit side. I think that's just because I grew up more with that, you know, like it used to be my first language, and I just, you know, surrounded by the culture, whereas I don't know too much about the European side of my heritage.
Yeah.
I'm just very proud that I'm Inuit, and like we're still here. Like I don't, I'm fairly white passing, so people don't really realize a lot of the time.
I think that that's a really great statement, right? It's so hard for people to recognize. We have a large population in Canada of people that you represent, that you are a stunning, beautiful woman, regardless of where your heritage is, that you just are. And to sort of have that recognition that a lot of people would never know that you had a First Nations background, because you do look very European, right? You just, and many people do. And my friend Dan as well, I would never have known that he was First Nation had he not told me. And by the way, actually during this broadcast, I would like to shout out a little bit to Dan, in that he is very much like you. He's an artist, and he is actually presenting right now The Winds of Change, which is a First Nations look at society during a residential school system. And his art is currently being held at Vancouver Island University, and will be there until I think the 16th or 20th of the month, or through the end of October. I'm not sure which, but at any rate, everyone should go and see it. So have you, as an artist, identified with other artists of like mind? Do you have like a favorite, or people you identify with when you look at art?
I don't know. It's sometimes hard to like discern who's done what, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're all inspired by each other, you know what I mean? So
yes.
Yeah.
So not jumping out at you. So there's no Emily Carr background or anything like that just sort of stuck out. Or in your training, was there? Did you go to school for the art, or were you naturally blessed with it?
I mean, I did take a couple art classes in high school, and I took one when I was attending BIU. But for the most part, it's just doodles and stuff on my own time.
Yeah. So why don't we break some of that doodling down? Because I know that you recently did a fantastic logo for Acroid Financial Services. A good friend of mine as well, Melanie Acroid. It owns the company. And I understand that you did her logo. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So Nahani is one of my mom's best friends. They've known each other for quite a while now. And she knows that I do art and I'm trying to pursue that. And so she reached out to me asking for me to do her logo. And I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So we met for coffee, and she told me kind of what she had in mind and what I should play with. And so I just created a bunch of different designs, trying to just play with the lettering and the shapes that she wanted, until we came up with what it is now.
Which is it's a very stunning representation, both in color and in design, of that openness and that blend for people to come and sort of feel safe automatically while they when they go to her services, because she has, there's something, and maybe you can clarify this a lot more for us, Melanie, but there's the color wheel, which is associated with the First Nation artwork, which is black and red and white and yellow. And that's such a big part of her logo. Can you talk to us about what those colors represent?
So it looks kind of like the medicine wheel, which is where those colors do come from. And it's just like, I'm very good at explaining the teachings. Just everything coming together in like a harmony, sort of, right? So there's all the four elements, right? But it's also like, I think it's mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So like all the compartments that make each and every one of us up. And that's all a big part of what she does. Like she works with you in all these different ways, you know, to provide the best services she can, really.
It's also a very welcoming wheel. It's my understanding that the four colors also represent the different colors of humanity. So, you know, white, yellow, Asian, European, African, First Nation, like all of the people that come together is represented underneath those four colors as well, which I think, you know, in my mind is one of the most beautiful things for us to be connected within. And so to have a logo that is inspired by that, and physical, mental, spiritual, and what was the other one we just had? Physical, mental, spiritual, and there was one more. Our listeners will be able to pick it up for us if we don't come back with it. But the idea would be that, you know, it hits all four quadrants of what makes us human beings. And unfortunately, financial safety and security is certainly a part of having that mental well-being and that overall well-being, for sure. I wonder, in regards to putting your art together, first of all, have you done other pieces, or have you done a number of logos, or is this a whole brand new experience for you?
I've done one other logo when I was maybe 7 or 8.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they had a logo contest for the Children's First Society back home. And so I just submitted this piece. It was just kind of a random thing that we all did in school, or daycare it might have been, I'm not sure. And I ended up winning like $100, and they put it on a bunch of shirts and like the side of it. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
No kidding, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. So your graphics became graphics on other people's belongings for a child first to represent. Is it a nonprofit agency? Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. Whichever it was, it doesn't matter. You want $100 and it's starting a career for you, it looks like, in doing logos and things of that nature for people. What do you love about art? What does it do for you?
I use it as a kind of outlet. One of my more popular pieces is a skull with a red handprint over the mouth and some cedar around it. And I was just getting really upset about, this was when all the children were being found around the country. And I was just getting really frustrated. And I mean, I'm glad it's finally coming to light, because we've known about it this whole time, right? Mm. And I just needed to channel that frustration into something. And I made that. I also made like a little rant poem sort of situation that went with that. Just because I was frustrated and needed it to go somewhere. So
yeah, and you know, you bring up such an important topic. Very recently, of course, at the time of this broadcast, we have been talking about residential school survivors and those that have been lost. And to date, I think 6,000, at the time of this broadcast, 6,519 souls have been found. and lost forever. And so I'm curious about your take on all of that. If you feel comfortable in sharing, what's been the experience with you, your family, or those that you love in having to deal with such a horrific find?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm glad they're being found.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more that we haven't found yet.
Of course.
But it is bringing up a lot of stuff for, people around me. My mom went to day school, but they don't acknowledge that as residential school, even though it's basically the same because she got to go home and they deem it not as bad. My grandmother never went to school because they moved around on the land so much to avoid the Indian agent. So she had to teach herself how to read and write by the time she was maybe 60. So she still struggles with that. And thankfully, Inuvialuktun is her first language. So I do have like some access to that traditional knowledge from her. But my uncles went to residential schools and they experienced things that they're just now starting to talk about in their maybe 60s, 70s, things that they've kept deep inside this whole time. And they're just now kind of okay enough to talk about it. But like my uncle, he still lives out on the land. He just prefers it there. He feels safe there. And he helps provide food for like the community and the elders and that. But he's never really been in a relationship. He won't get married, have kids. Like he's, not very touchy, they've left lasting scars, right? And yeah, I mean,
it's unconscionable for people to, I can't even imagine what families must be going through. The pain that's been dredged up. More importantly, I mean, the amount that, as you pointed out so eloquently, the amount of people that still haven't found their loved ones, that are still missing, and, and how so many knew about it for so long, and the stories were being shared, but nobody was listening. Nobody was hearing the pain and what was going on. So to your family, my humble apologies. They never taught us. When I was growing up, I just turned 58. I don't usually talk about my age on air, but I just turned 58 a few weeks back. And when I was going to school, I had a very close friend named Patsy. And one day she was in the same school that I was in, and the next minute she was gone. I was later to find out that she was picked up in the 60s scoop. So many people disappeared. And when I went to school, there was just no discussion. It was 1 minute she was in my classroom and the next minute she was not. That's it, right? She was also the only First Nations girl in my entire school of probably, I don't know, 500 or 600 people. And so, to sort of see and to understand that there are so many schools in our country, so many residential schools in our country. And I don't feel, although I shouldn't be on a soapbox, I just don't think we're doing enough to find this stuff out. It doesn't feel resolute to me in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if it ever will. I don't know how your community, the Inuit community, the pain that you must have gone through, even though you're a generation out of it, it's a legacy, yes?
Yeah. I mean, thankfully the weather and the terrain is kind of harsh where I'm from. So the colonizers weren't really able to take root there. So we do still have a lot of our practices and our language, and we're making steps to help restore what was lost, because it is still very Christian and whitewashed, a lot of it.
Yeah.
But we are making steps to log the traditional languages and the practices and all that. But yeah, unfortunately down here, the impact was a lot greater, and, you know, a lot more was lost, people, culture, you know, all of that. We're making some steps in the right direction, but it is very slow progress. And some of it we just, you know, can't get back.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I have an analogy that you can take a fresh piece of paper and you can crumple it all up. When you crumple it all out, you can unfold it and take an iron to it, and all the crumples still show. The reality is that unfortunately, that is the situation. Is we may be able to rectify some things, we may be able to, you know, shed light on, but, you know, that piece of paper is never a pure piece of paper again. It will never be the same. Nor will the people that have experienced in their families this tremendous loss. And the fact that we didn't, you know, listen is the thing that bugs me the most, is that, you know, when people tell you something, pay attention, right? They're telling you something that is very important to the history and the longevity of everyone's family, regardless of where you're from, right? And so I'm so proud of you in this short conversation that we've had, that you can so eloquently speak to it, but also that, you know, your way of sort of kind of working with it is through the medium of art and through, you know, drawing something or painting something that has the handprint and the cedar bows around the mouth of the child. How long do you feel that it took you to actually do that piece of art? And how long does it normally take you to do something that is so deep?
That one probably took, well, I kept fine tuning it and playing with it, and I just wasn't quite happy with it for the longest time. Maybe, not sure, 5-10 hours, somewhere around there. I don't work with color too much, so the red, I wanted it to be vibrant, you know, so that took a bit of playing with. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the piece. Like this month I've been doing what's called Inktober. So you get prompts for every day and you make something small. So I've been doing that, and that just takes maybe.
What a great idea. Inktober. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, so I've been doing that. So that doesn't take too long, maybe an hour, 2-3 hours, just to make like a small piece that goes with the prompt. Whereas like I have a painting here beside me that I've been working on since August, maybe, because I just haven't been happy with it. So it's at maybe 60-70 hours. But it's like it's a bigger painting, right? So it just depends on what it is and what I'm doing.
So where do you see yourself take your work? What would you love to happen?
Right now I've been putting a portfolio together to try to become a tattoo artist.
Oh, a whole new conversation. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be neat. I mean, I've always seen art in sort of everything, I guess. You know, I did culinary for a little bit because, you know, you can make art out of that, or, you know, whatever it is. Like I like to do my makeup. That's another form. But I just like the idea of being the canvas, you know?
Yeah.
Sort of becoming the art. My mom's not exactly a huge fan, but that's okay.
Well, it's because you're our babies, and I don't care where you're from. Us mamas are all the same. You're our babies, and tattooing yourself up makes us a little nervous. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So do you have any tattoos now?
I have 2. I've got this guy on the back of my arm.
Beautiful. So for those of you who cannot see this, just so you know, because it's the radio medium, it's an owl. It's a beautiful, beautiful owl. It's quite a big piece too. I'll bet that hurt.
It wasn't too bad.
That's what everybody says when we talk about tattoos. They say, oh, no, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. Scares the crap out of me. It's painful. Tell me about your other one.
And then the other one that I have is here. I just got it a couple days ago. It's an eagle.
Oh my goodness, it's a beautiful eagle. Wow. So across her stomach base, she has an incredible, ouch. So which hurt more, the arm or the stomach?
Definitely the sternum. That one was kind of rough.
Yeah. And how long did it take to have those done?
The one on my arm took maybe 3 hours. And the one on my sternum took 4. And then I'm getting the skull with the handprint on my shoulder in 2 weeks. So.
Whoa. Well, congratulations that you're getting it done. And ouch, 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 ouch. And so both of those are your artwork that someone has taken your art? No, just out of curiosity. Okay.
Just the one that I'm getting on my shoulder will be, yeah.
Oh my. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Hey guys, if you have just tuned in, thanks for tuning in today on Act 3. We're glad you're here. We really appreciate you having a conversation with us through your medium, whether or not you're driving in your car or you're at work or at home. We really appreciate it when you tune in. Melanie Hopkins is an entrepreneur. She's a very vibrant young lady who's Inuit and is now living here on Vancouver Island. She is an artist, a graphic designer, an entrepreneur, just an absolutely lovely person. And she's got a few things to say about a few different things. So we're really, really glad that she's here today. And again, thank you for joining us if you just tuned in.
So right now I'm just focusing on, getting some more ink.
On your own, for sure.
Yeah, so I can, get a feel of what the different shops are like, different artists are like, kind of, see how they're doing, if they're taking apprentices, putting my portfolio together. I don't think I'm, quite ready yet. I still need to, focus on my line work and maybe work with colors a bit more since I'm not super comfortable with that yet. And then hopefully, someday I'll be able to become an apprentice and we'll go from there.
So I think one of the things that I haven't mentioned when we started the program today is that you're a young gal, right? And so you finished high school, you're in university, or have you graduated from university? Where are you in your cycle of career?
So I was going to university for a little bit. I went for about a year and then decided it wasn't for me. So I stopped and now I just work at the restaurant and focus on my art. And
yeah, and that's awesome because your art is really quite spectacular. I think that it's really important that people understand that we're all at different levels of our life, and those people that are listening to the program, it's really designed for everybody because we're all coming to this place with our own story, and part of the joy of Act 3 is sharing those stories with our community and then recognizing that every single person has such important value to our community as well, no matter where you are, right? I mean, I'm a little bit older than you are. I probably had a couple of careers in my lifetime, but most definitely the ones that are the most important to me are when I can engage with the community itself. And art does that for you. And it's certainly done it for you in the sense of designing a logo for Acroid Financial Services, which was the start of all of this. And the reason I reached out to Nahani, because Nahani was on the show last week. So I wanted to actually reach out to you very specifically because I'm always curious about what art looks like to different people. Earlier in the program, I talked about Dan Elliott, a very good friend of mine, who is showcasing the Winds of Change being held right now at VIU. Do you see yourself much like Dan, at some point finding yourself doing an exhibit somewhere, or do you what does all of this look like from this lens at this stage of your life, noting it's going to change? What does it look like right now?
I mean, I've never thought about doing an exhibit. I don't have very many big pieces. Some people were asking me on my Instagram if I was doing prints. And so I started looking into that. And so now I know how to make them, but no one's, I'm not really at a point yet where people are really buying them. I mean, I do some paintings, like I can show you this guy that's a work in progress. He's a commission for one of my coworkers.
Wow. So for those of you who can't see this on radio, but you'll be able to see it on our Zoom, and by all means, I encourage you to go to our YouTube station on Act 3 on YouTube, and there will be a link down below. But I'm curious, like with that painting alone, for those of you who can't see it, is this gorgeous red sky and an elephant. And you said it was commissioned. Did she have a love for elephants, or was there, can you tell us why or how that came to be?
So my coworker's he's one of the ones that was like, you should be a tattoo artist. Like, cause it would be slow at work and I'd, take a pen and start drawing just random stuff on my arms or whatever. And he goes, okay, so I want a painting. I'm like, okay, sure. And so he sends me a picture of this background that he has. I think I have it actually. And he asked me to paint this like wallpaper for him. Mm-hmm. And that's this guy here.
So the wallpaper in the background that she's showing is of a rose in red and black. The rose itself is white against the screen. It's stunning. It's a beautiful piece.
And so I did that for him about a year ago. Mm-hmm. It's just here because he dented it and needed it touched up. And so he asked for another painting and he goes, okay, I want the red to match. I want it to, match. And he's from Zimbabwe. So he likes, elephants, and he asked for fire lilies and all this different stuff. And so I was like, yeah, okay.
And very vibrant colors too. The red is really very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
So thank you. Like I said, I don't usually work with colors, but I'll make an exception for him. It's good practice for me too.
So what would you say the genre of the lion's share of your work is then? Is it, do you do commission pieces for different people on their request, or is there a certain genre that you like to do for yourself, and, some things just kind of fall from it as it goes?
I mean, I do commissions just because I haven't really gotten many, just for him really. I don't know. I like doing, inspired by like nature and animals, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I also like doing kind of like horror themes. I do a lot of like skulls and stuff.
There's a lot of tattoo artists, if the truth be told. I see a lot of tattoos out there where there's skull and yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah, flowers, skulls, and
yeah.
I'm definitely like snakes and stuff because those are pretty popular,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then I'll do some more pieces whenever I get inspired or angry, that are more like culturally based.
The culturally based piece, right now is so timely, with people really starting to pay attention, based on some of the things we talked about earlier in the program. And so I wonder, you've been here now since you were about 13, you said, right? So 11. Okay. So half your life you've been here, you mentioned. And so being that you've been here for that long, do you find that you still are very much Inuit in your art, or has that evolved or changed in living on the West Coast?
I feel like I do a decent job balancing them. Like a lot of my experience is with the Inuit culture and all of that, but like with the skull piece with the red hand, it does have cedar around it, which is traditional to the Snuneymuxw people and surrounding areas. Mm-hmm. Where another piece I did because of all the children being found was this one, which is a child with their hair braided running towards a grandmother. And I did choose a grandmother's face that looks a little more Inuk. She kind of reminds me of my grandma, so I just thought that was kind of fitting for me, at least, whereas the long braid is a little more fitting towards the Coast Salish peoples.
Mm-hmm. is there much difference between the Coast Salish peoples and the Inuit peoples in the way, I know certainly language will be different and many different, much of the art I suspect is different, but you know, are there some things that are very indicative towards Inuit that we wouldn't necessarily see from Coast Salish or other First Nation communities in British Columbia?
I think. I mean, everybody dances a bit differently, right? Regionally. So that's a bit different. We all, you know, it's similar though. Like we don't have regalia and all the, you know, traditional pieces like they do here. Or just, you know, a parky and like.
So you got to be a lot warmer up there, for sure. And in all fairness, it's much colder up there. So I suspect you'd be wearing a lot more warmer.
Yeah, it's mostly furs and skins and stuff. Yeah, the art's pretty different too. It's more of like a simplistic, swirly sort of thing. It's kind of hard to explain. Whereas here,
I think I know what you're saying though. There's a curve to it. Like I've seen a very, a dear friend of mine is a Inuit artist actually out of the Yukon, and the colors are different. It's very blue and orange and red and very defined lines and swirls that you were talking of on the pieces.
Sorry?
On paper pieces. The carving is different, but on paper.
Yeah, so we carve more stone, you know, we make inukshuks and, you know, carvings into stone, whereas here it's more wood-based, it seems, you know, with the traditionally red and black, like, shapes, making the animals and, like, totem poles and stuff like that. So we don't have, like, anything like that. I don't really see, like, unless it's the, you know, black and red, like traditional tattoos here, whereas back home we have, you know, traditional Inuit like finger tattoos, chin tattoos. You get like the V on your forehead, and the different markings mean different things, different accomplishments in your life. And then different regions will have different designs and stuff, so you can kind of tell by someone's face, because there's a lot of face tattoos, like where they're from, like who they are, what they've done, you know. That anywhere else,
certainly
really.
I don't think I really see very much. I've seen hand tattoos. I haven't seen a lot of facial tattoos in this region comparatively, and so that's interesting to me. And again, having said that, we're talking two different climates and two different ways of approaching, right?
Yes.
So I could certainly see where the facial tattoos would be more popular in the north.
Yeah, so the only thing really visible when it's cold is your hands and your face, so that's why those would be the areas tattooed. They did have like arms and leg tattoos. They especially for women, it was primarily women that got tattooed. They do the legs when you were expecting, so that the first thing the baby sees would be something beautiful.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you have any leg tattoos?
No, I don't. I don't yet. I do plan on getting the traditional hand tattoos at some point, but I gotta wait until we're able to go home for that.
Oh, I understand. And that I would imagine that you would want, I mean, when you think about your hand tattoo, first of all, there's not a lot of skin between your skin and your bones. So those puppies are you'll know you did them. That's for sure. But what will be some of the symbols that you would find on a hand?
So it's mostly lines. I don't really have any examples with me, but yeah, mostly like lines.
And are they of a certain color, or are they also black? The way many tattoos are mostly done in black, it seems.
Yeah, it's mostly black. They traditionally use like the lamp grease oil and stuff, and then they would stitch skin stitching or finger stitching, and then rub the soot and oil in there to make the pigment stay.
So a little bit different than using a tattoo drill or pen. It's more of an art form in the way even that it's processed on your body.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know anything about tattoos, so I'm really grateful that you're helping. And listeners, I'm hoping that you're taking something from this conversation. It's so interesting to me to talk interculturally, and especially when you don't know anything about, I know nothing about the Inuit culture at all. I'm a full-born Canadian, probably 5 generations. I knew it as the Northwest Territories until we split the Northwest Territories up and created, this additional territory, so that there are now 3. Well, Yukon considered being one of them, and then the 2 territories. And so it, to me, has been Iqualuit. Is it Inuit is with Iqualuit? Is that the same area, or is that over in the other territory?
Iqualuit, Nunavut. So the Inuit people kind of span over the Arctic. And there's like obviously different regions within that, but we're all Inuit. You know what I mean?
I understand. But Nunavut is the one province, and Iqualuit is a city. It's the capital city of Nunavut.
Yes.
And Inuit itself is not a place, it's a region. Is that right? Or is it a place? What?
So Inuit is
person. You're an
the
Inuit
people.
Is Inuit, correct. But Northwest Territory is not Nunavut or Iqualuit. It is, even though the people are the same in both the regions, it's just the Northwest Territory, correct? It didn't change its name to anything other than that.
Yep.
My Canadian geography has to be fixed and rectified, I will tell you that, because just that in itself is confusing. And noting that, in the West Coast, we don't hear much of Inuit, not much at all, actually. We hear a lot of, First Nations, certainly, throughout the province, but Inuit is still yet another of the, for lack of better words, tribes of the First Nations family. It's a really bad choice of word, I think. What would it be? It's like being Scottish, Irish, German, French, Inuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're able to educate me better. By all means, do not send the letters to CHLY 101.7. You can send them to me directly. You can make notes on the bottom, and I will happily make any restitutions that I can, as I know that, it's a learning process for so many. If I don't know, you can best be sure that a whole bunch of our listeners don't know either. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I really appreciate it. And speaking of wisdom, it's kind of my favorite part of the show. When you've gone through your experiences, you're a young woman living on the West Coast. Art is such a passion of yours, and you're able to start to bridge it into a career. For someone of your age to have this already kind of as a dream, in the motion, in the works, 10 years from now is going to look very different. 20 years from now is going to look different again. 30 years from now, who knows, right? Looks different again. But what have you learned from the people that you love that have brought you to this place? What kind of wisdom could you share in that regard to our community?
I don't know. I mean, just kind of got to do what makes you happy, Like, I tried school, wasn't doing it for me. I tried culinary, it was there for a while. I was like, yeah, this is nice, but it's not really what I want to be doing forever. Yeah. And art's just kind of always been there, just whether it's, prevalent or not. It's always there. You can find beauty in anything, and as long as you're, happy and you keep going with it, just trying to, make the world a bit of a more beautiful of a place as much as I can,
But I have to tell you, you've made it a beautiful place already. The art that you've shared with us today, although the radio listeners can't see it, I hope we've been able to describe it, has been extraordinary. Thank you for doing what it is that you're doing and for being so candid and so patient with my lack of knowledge on all of this stuff. I have to say, you know, listeners, that the only way that we can all be better as a community is for us to admit what we don't know and to be comfortable enough to ask the right questions. And I hope I've asked the right questions of you without burdening you to have to give us the answers to things that, you know, maybe as older adults we should know at our ages, but unfortunately we don't always. Thanks for being part of my program. I'm so grateful that you were here today. Thank you, Melanie Hopkins. Melanie, are you on Facebook, or how can people connect with you if they want to talk to you about your art, or they'd like to perhaps commission you to do some art? How can they reach you?
I'm on Instagram at Inuk_ink. It's INUK_INK. I do have Facebook, but it's more of a personal.
That's a personal thing. Let's stick with the Instagram. Let's keep it with the Instagram. Would you mind repeating the Instagram address one more time?
The Inuk Ink, INUK_ink on Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. And again, my gratitude for your patience and your time today. And thanks for sharing your art. You are indeed making this world a much more beautiful place. So thank you. Ladies and gents, this is it for this episode of Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. As I said, if you have something that you want to share to help let our community know a little bit more about the culture of the Inuit people, and of course about Melanie Hopkins' art, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at act3mediaproductions@gmail.com. That's act3mediaproductions@gmail.com. And have yourself an amazing, wonderful, spectacular day. We'll see you next week on Act 3.